on Election Day. It feels like this comes around about every 3 weeks. It's felt like that for a while now, but this is the primary runoff day. And to talk about that, we have my buddy, Secretary of State for the great state of Mississippi, Michael Watson, joining us here on the Gallo Show. How you doing this morning, Sec?
Oh.
Yep, he dropped out. Is he okay?
I think he's okay.
Okay, he's okay. That's good to hear. How you doing, Michael?
I'm well. I'm busy, but we're good. How about yourself?
Not bad. Now tell us about today, and I think probably the one expectation that we can guarantee is we don't want it to be this way. I would expect probably a light turnout today. What do you think?
I'm quite interested in today. As you probably saw, about 11% turnout on June 7th, which was unfortunate. Mississippi's got to do a better job of getting out to the polls. But on absentee numbers, the absentee voting was in the Republican side was only about just north of 200 off what we saw on June 7th. So that was a little bit of a surprise to me that the numbers are tracking very closely, almost surpassing what we saw on the 7th. So maybe people have been woken up and they're going to head to the polls today to go vote.
What do you think the problem here is? How do we get more people to go to the polls? Because you called it unfortunate, which I think was a great word to use. I've been using a different one to describe. I'm sorry, when you have 11% of the voters that even bother to go to the polls to cast a ballot, to me, that's frightening and it's pathetic. And we've got to do something to get people back to the polling places to cast their ballots. How do we do that?
Well, I think it's a few things we can do. One of the things that we work on is Promote the Vote program that get into our schools, and our teachers help us to teach our young Mississippians the importance of voting, making sure that you honor the men and women who fought, died, and gave us that right. It's such a precious right. We just started a new program called our Ambassador Program, where we've got just north of 50 high school coming seniors who are going to help us with voter registration drives. We're doing the things that we can to really instill the value of, look, this is such an important thing to have your voices heard. So those are the couple things that we're working on. As far as the general public, again, getting out and making folks aware. Every time we go speak, we talk about elections and making sure people understand the process, because I think you saw a lot of folks who kind of wanted to just push away from the table for a bit after 2020. We need to make sure that we reinforce the idea that Mississippi had a great election in 2020. We've got a wonderful process here. The vote that you cast is the vote that's going to count. And so as we can continue to make sure people understand that we've got plenty of integrity in our system here, hopefully that confidence will return and we'll see people coming back out to the polls.
Well, and I think part of it, I think you're exactly right, kind of, people pushed away from the table, as you put it, because I've been talking about this for a while, and there's nothing you can do about it, but I think part of our problem is election fatigue. There is never a time when there's not some kind of campaign going. I don't remember the last time where there were no signs in anybody's yard anywhere, and I have to wonder if people aren't just a little worn out.
Probably so. And if you think about it that way, that's a little bit concerning for next year.
Yes.
So here we go again. We're going to gear back up, statewide elections. And I think just people, in a general sense, sometimes they just get tired of what's going on. And they got to remember, this is your opportunity to make a change. If you think that this country's headed in the wrong direction, get out there and go to the polls, and research the candidates, make sure that you understand who stands for what. And as I've told you, Dave, and we've talked about this quite often, it's not just today. Yeah, we want you to vote today, but then you got to make sure you're holding these individuals accountable for what they said. And if they do what they said, get back out there and support them again. If they don't, vote them out. So it's important that people are taking the time to pay attention to what's happening in D.C. as well as Jackson, Mississippi, in your hometown as well.
Well, you're exactly right. Now, the elections today, the primary runoffs, the runoff process in Mississippi, and we've had some audio from you on the air about how this works. It's a little complicated compared to some other states in regards to who can and who cannot vote today. The good news is, with only 11% turnout back on the 7th, the vast majority of voters are eligible to vote today, right?
That's exactly right. So if you voted in the Democratic primary on June 7th, you cannot vote. You cannot cross over. That's the key word there. You cannot cross over and vote in the runoff today. If you did not vote, you are eligible to go to the polls today. And obviously, if you voted in the Republican primary on the 7th, then you can come back out and vote today. So it is a little bit different, and that's an important piece to point out. Again, talking about the process, let's make sure that we understand the law so folks can go out and vote and have their voices heard.
Oh, exactly. Now, it's not the entire state or is it, that has somebody on the ballot today?
It's just the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th congressional districts. So it's a Republican runoff in each of those districts. The 1st does not have a runoff today. So if you live in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, we hope that you'll get out and go vote.
And it's just that simple. The polling places are open until 7 o'clock. They are your usual polling places that you go to, unless there has been some sort of change locally due to, a problem with the building or something like that. Occasionally they change, but they do publish those changes. But where you normally go vote is where you're going to go cast your ballot today, right?
That's a great point. We've got a polling locator on our website, Dave. The problem is sometimes we'll get a wrong address in from the local level. Sometimes there's a late change. I think there was one in Hinds County. It was an emergency change that was posted late, and we did not get that notice until recently. Actually, someone called and told us about it. So if you have a question, you can use a polling locator, but most importantly, make sure that you call your local level, your circuit clerk, elections commissioners, to double check to get the right information. Again, we have a polling locator, but the information that we have on there is only as good as the information that we're given. So you can use that, but if something looks awry there, make sure that you're calling your local level and getting that information from them as well.
Well, and I know we had down in Pike County, we had one instance in one of our elections recently and coming up as well, where the polling place was in the same building. It was just in a different part of the building. Instead of in the front on the right, it was in the back on the left, and it confused a lot of people. So I think the lesson here is don't be afraid to ask somebody. Don't just pull up and go, oh, well, I guess we're not voting, and go home. You've got to be inquisitive, and you've got to be determined that you're going to cast your ballot when you leave the house to head out to go vote.
That's exactly right. And again, having an engaged electorate, part of it is making sure you're aware of where your precinct is. And if it's calling your circuit clerk or your commissioner or our office, whomever it is, you're exactly right. Please don't be afraid to ask questions. It's important to have the information, and trusted information is one of the things that we focused on. We've seen these out of the country, folks that are trying to, again, put out rumors and misinformation, but we also see it here in the state and around the country. So that's something that's important to us, making sure you have trusted information. Talking to our office, your circuit clerk's office, or your local election commissioners is very important as well, Dave.
And, one other thing, and this doesn't really speak to the elections, but I just want to throw this in. When you were talking about holding elected officials accountable, to me, part of that is something that no one does anymore because, I'm sorry, I'm going to upset some people. Did you know, this is a fun fact, your elected officials aren't reading that snarky comment you posted on Facebook. They don't care. That's not talking to your elected official and letting them know what you think about the job they're doing and what you think they should be focusing on, because one of the qualifications to be in an elected office is not being psychic. They can't read your mind. You have to tell them. And as a statewide elected official, does it bother you when people call your office or send you an email or run into you at the store and come up and ask you a question or tell you something that's on their mind?
I love it. I think the more people that are engaged, the better government you get. And so if it's seeing one of us at Walmart or at the local restaurant or calling our office, emailing, sending a letter, that's important. I remember early on in my Senate career when I was in the Senate, one of the senators came up to me and he said, "Man, why aren't you answering all these emails? These people aren't in your district." If someone took the time to reach out to me, it was important enough for me to respond. Hey, listen, this is what I think. Even if you're not in my district, you're still a Mississippian. So I try my best to respond to everything that comes through. If it's a Facebook message or sometimes on Twitter message or direct message, however all these technical things that are working are out there. But I think it's important, again, if we can talk to Mississippians, it reminds us of where we come from. I think that's an important piece. And then number two, being among the people and listening to them keeps our minds out of that Jackson bubble or Washington, D.C. bubble and into the real world. I think that's an important part of being a good elected official.
And we've got got something on the C Spire text line down in Hattiesburg reminding everybody of what we're talking about. Be sure to encourage your listeners to go vote today. A little slow at my polling place this morning, and I think that's probably going to be the story across the state. That would be my guess. I hope I'm wrong. I've never more strongly hoped that I was completely wrong about something. I hope we have an 80% turnout.
And that would be fantastic.
We both know it's not going to happen, Michael.
Well, all we can do is try to encourage folks again to honor the men and women who fought and died for this right. It's an important day in Mississippi. It's an important day for our country. So please go take the time to vote.
And trust me, with these turnout numbers, it won't take you 5 minutes. That's the best part. There's not going to be a line, plenty of free parking. All you got to do is show up and cast your vote. Secretary of State Michael Watson, we got to catch up more often, man. I never talk to you except during election time, it feels like.
Well, let's sit down, have a cup of coffee, and see how everything's going in your world.
I am in, my friend. Secretary of State Michael Watson, enjoy it. Get back to work, sir. We'll talk to you soon.
Take care, buddy. Bye-bye.
Keep up the great job. We will continue on the Gallo Show.